Welcome to this episode of The Wolf and the Shepherd. Today we are going to be talking about Halloween. And of course, Halloween is every American's favorite holiday. I don't care where you come from, we all love Halloween. I especially love Halloween because it just so happens to be my birthday. And of course, growing up, it's one of the best birthdays you can have as a kid, because everybody's dressing up in costumes, everybody's having parties, you go to carnivals, you get a bunch of candy, tons of fun when you're a kid, and then all of a sudden you become an adult and you realize, well, Halloween kind of tends to be all about the kids, and then everybody forgets that it's your birthday.
Now, Shepherd, how old are you this year?
I will be 42 this year.
42.
42.
Wow. Are you expecting any great birthday gifts?
No. My gift this year would be for my family to remember that it is actually my birthday and not be so focused on the fact of trying to go out and figure out whether or not they can trick or treat in this COVID mess that we're in right now. Because, you know, you take the kids out, right, and they're trick or treating. And my rule has always been, if the porch light's on, you go up and you ring the doorbell. If the porch light's off, you skip the house and you go to the next house. I'm thinking my kids are going to dress up in their Halloween costumes, and there's going to be a lot of porch lights that are going to be off, and they're going to be disappointed.
Yeah, now here in North Texas, especially here, North Tarrant County where we are, on the Nextdoor app, they have a treat map, and it's actually got a map of people who have registered, who are actually giving out candy, who have interactive experiences, decorations. So now,
nice.
Even if you go in your car, because if you're walking normally, on a normal year, you can just walk down like 6 streets, and it might take you an hour, and that'd be great. But now, with not so many people taking part, you might have to walk 20 miles to get the same experience. So I think this type of treat map thing is great, because you can go in your car rather than walk in and drive to a neighborhood maybe quarter of a mile away where there's like 3 successive streets where maybe 4 or 5 houses might be participating in it.
Right.
And so I think that's a very good thing, because it enables people who want to still have the same Halloween experience to still have it without having to kind of basically walk a marathon and get home at like 2:40 a.m.
Yeah, and of course you also have like the trunk or treat events.
Yeah.
You got
at churches especially.
Yeah, churches and other organizations where they bring the cars in. Everybody backs into the spot.
Yeah.
They open the trunk. They open the back gate of the SUV. Kind of decorate the cars up, make an event out of it. I don't have a problem with that either. I just hope that in this COVID atmosphere that we're in, that kids can still enjoy Halloween, because even though it is my birthday, I still dismiss that, because I remember being a kid and Halloween was important to me beyond my birthday. It was just important to go knock on the door, ring the doorbell, trick or treat, dress up in a costume, all that good stuff. So I hope as we go through this mess that we're in, that kids don't lose that this year. I really hope we can figure out a way to get past that.
Yeah. Now in Texas and, I guess in the South, it's probably better that if you're going to have your birthday on a prominent day of the year, Halloween is probably a good day. Because if you do it on Christmas, or you do it on especially if, obviously Easter changes every year.
Yeah, well, two of my kids have birthdays very close to national holidays. Actually, 3, if we want to get technical.
Why did you do that?
Well, so my youngest, his birthday is one day after Valentine's Day.
Right.
And my wife went through some trouble with that pregnancy, and they actually wanted to get him out on Valentine's Day, and I protested that. I said, no, I'm not going to have a kid that has a birthday on a recognized holiday or some special day. One of my boys, my oldest boy, he has a birthday 2 days after Christmas. My daughter has a birthday right around July 4th. So that they all somehow carried on and are kind of suffering through that birthday right around a holiday. And I know that sucks for a lot of people because they kind of want their birthday to, stand alone. That's their day. So, my youngest son right there after Valentine's Day, it's probably going to eventually suck for him.
Yeah.
I mean, he's 7 now, so he doesn't really care. So not a big deal. Although he could look at it as the day after Valentine's Day, there's going to be all that Valentine's Day candy on sale. So if he wants to eat up the candy, good for him. It's all going to be 50, 75% off. My daughter, being right around July 4th, it's after July 4th, but she can look at the fact that, if July 4th falls kind of close to a weekend, she's always going to be able to celebrate her birthday with some fireworks shows that go on. I always told my oldest boy that he actually got the better one of this because his birthday is after Christmas, and then you have all the after Christmas sales.
Right.
So I've always told him, hey, look, for your birthday and for Christmas, just ask for gift cards because then you can run out to all the after Christmas sales and get you a lot of cool stuff rather than trying to collect the gifts. And that's actually what he's done. And so it's worked out good for him.
Yeah, I share a birthday with Bruce Springsteen and my dog, Mia the Vizsla. So there's not really any distraction on my birthday.
Well, we decided we actually passed a law in Congress to make sure that wasn't an official holiday.
Well, I've tried.
Sorry about that.
But anyway, so, the topic today is obviously Halloween. I always get pretty excited about Halloween. It is one of my favorite holidays, not because it's your birthday, because until...
Let's be honest, it's because it's my birthday, but you can lie to the audience. Well, no,
you told me 5 years ago it was your birthday on Halloween, and then I forgot for like the last 4 years. It's only because we're doing this podcast that I actually know it's your birthday on Halloween, because guys being guys, we don't buy each other stuff for birthdays or,
right.
But anyway, I love Halloween. I love this time of year because, especially living in Texas, I love that the weather starts changing around this time of the year. It starts getting cooler.
We get our 2 weeks of fall.
Yeah. And as we discussed in one of our recent podcasts, you don't have to change your underwear quite so often, so you're not sweating in 108-degree weather every day. So I kind of like, the beginning of the fall, which, officially is on my birthday. I think September 23rd is the official beginning of fall. But Halloween, I think, really kind of marks what most people believe is kind of the beginning of, fall, with all the colors, the pumpkins out, everything else. So, I mean, I love this time of year. It gets into the temperatures where I feel comfortable.
Sure.
Where if I throw on, a long sleeve t-shirt and actually wear some pants for one time in 9 months of the year, I actually feel, pretty good with it. But, going to the origins of Halloween, it's pretty cloudy in some respects because it actually originated, according to some people, back in Roman times. But, what we tend to celebrate in terms of Halloween and the traditions really goes back to Celtic origins.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And, the ancient Celtic festival of, it's spelled like Samhain. I think if you pronounce it wrong...
Samhain.
Yeah.
S-A-M-H-A-I-N.
Now, we need to be careful because I think if you pronounce it wrong, you summon a demon or the devil or something. So,
hang on. Let me look around the room.
Yeah, the lights
the lights aren't flickering.
Yeah.
Okay, we're still safe.
So anyway,
want to make sure.
Yeah, so during that festival, people would actually light bonfires and wear costumes to ward off the ghosts.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, and you have to think, well, who first came up with that idea? Let's be honest. I mean, it wasn't like that there was a conglomeration of people on the internet who came to this agreed principle. Al
Gore was the first one to say Halloween.
To invent Halloween,
yes.
yeah. And he was lighting the fires so that people weren't like...
That makes total sense.
Drilling for oil or something.
I believe
don't know.
that.
Yeah. But back actually in the 8th century, Pope Gregory III, I don't know if Pope Gregory II was any good, but Pope Gregory III at least
Pope
has
Gregory
this name.
II probably didn't like Halloween.
Right. Well, anyway, he designated November the 1st as a time to honor All Saints, and that's where
All Saints Day, right?
Yeah, and that's where most people kind of, who've done any research whatsoever, even accidentally, kind of get the All Saints Day thing, and the evening before is known as All Hallows Eve, or later on it became Halloween.
Yeah, I've heard that term, All Hallows Eve, because then you have All Saints Day the next day. It makes total sense.
Yeah.
It makes total sense.
Yeah, and the Celts, they actually believed on that night before their New Year, because they had a different type of calendar. They divided it by seasons. They had less seasons than us, which to me, I'm actually a bit annoyed that we break it down into 4 seasons, because especially here in Texas, where we have like 4 seasons in one day sometimes.
Yeah, we do. All day long. I mean, you can wake up, it's wintertime, then it's summertime, then it's fall, then all of a sudden it's spring, and you say, well, that's why you have to have so many clothes packed in your car, because you can walk out in a winter coat and what do you call them? Wellies,
in England, Wellingtons. Yes.
Wellingtons, yeah. You can walk out of your house with that, and by the end of the day, you're in shorts and a t-shirt, and then all of a sudden it starts raining. You don't know what's going on in Texas. There's an old saying in Texas that if you don't like the weather, wait 15 minutes, and
it'll
it's
change.
Absolutely true.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I think the Celts had the right idea, and I mean, in Texas, certainly we can follow that model of it's hot and then it's cold. But anyway, their thing was they had the end of summer and the beginning of winter. And at that point, that crossover, the end of the harvest, they believed the boundary between the worlds of the living and the dead became very, very blurred. And October 31st, they believe that the ghosts of the dead return to Earth. Now, that's because, when everything dies, and, there's kind of like rebirth, they believe that was the point where, that blurring of that line, everything's dying, and you go through a period of, especially, you have to think that most people were reliant on agriculture at that point in time.
Absolutely.
For their living. And you had to store stuff up for the winter. Right. You had to be the wise harvest mouse and all that stuff. And so that's how they, divided their year. And so they believed at that point there, between the death of everything, and then you went through this period, that this cold period was a time of spirits and death.
It makes total sense.
But also, you have to think back in the Middle Ages and later on that most people died in the winter of diseases and hypothermia and everything else. So it was a time traditionally of death.
We didn't have insulated houses. We didn't have heaters. I mean, you had houses that had, maybe a fireplace in there. They were burning a fire, trying to keep warm, but it's not like we have today with central heat, gas heat, things like that. It makes total sense that your deaths actually came in the wintertime because you could run out of food.
Yeah.
You can't grow any more food. Lots of animals start to hibernate. They don't have access to food. They're hiding out. They're trying to survive the winter. So the wintertime was a harsh time.
Yeah.
It was an absolute harsh time.
Yeah. And Halloween was celebrated throughout Europe, hundreds of years before, obviously, the foundation of the United States. But Halloween being celebrated in the United States got off to a bit of a slow start.
Okay.
Because, most of the settlers came into the colonial New England area.
Right.
And they were very Presbyterian and very Protestant.
Were they too distracted by the changing of the colors of the leaves? I mean, we don't see that in Texas. I was up in New England during the fall or the autumn, whichever one you want to call it. And, of course, being colorblind, I can see the trees are, they're starting
for you, the leaves are either on the tree or off the tree. They don't change
exactly.
color. They don't change color.
Exactly. But there are so many people that go up to New England and they want to drive through and they want to see the leaves changing colors and how beautiful it is. And I'm like, they're trying to get rid of their leaves. Their trees. Leave them alone. Why are we making a big deal out of this?
leave them alone.
That's punny. I didn't mean to say that.
Sesame Street joke.
There you go.
Yeah, but I mean, it's the same. Well, I mean, you don't have to go up north. I mean, it's the same thing in Colorado. I mean, I was there like less than a month ago, and the trees there had started turning and stuff. I think in Texas, because we're in this little bubble, I guess, in terms of the weather.
Right.
That, I mean, we do have trees that turn colors, but we don't appreciate it maybe as much as people who post all these photos on Facebook and Instagram of, oh, what a beautiful fall picture. Whereas here, in Texas, the temperature falls below 70 degrees, and it's like the Game of Thrones, winter is coming.
Sure.
Type scenario. Now, with Halloween, obviously, there's a lot of traditions and stuff outside of the background we already explored of where Halloween came from.
Right.
There are certain things which, if you say Halloween, give me 4 or 5 things about Halloween, people are always going to mention it. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. And a lot of people, including myself, were quite ignorant from the origins of where these things came from. I just assumed, oh, it's Halloween. I mean, just like with Christmas, you put in balls on the tree and tinsel and all this stuff. If you don't know the origins of these things, you just take them for granted. You just do it because of tradition.
Yeah, when you're raised a certain way, you just know that there's certain things when this time of the year comes around, you start doing these things. Your parents did these, and you just follow along with that, and you blindly follow it. You don't really research behind why you're doing it. It's like, oh, okay, well, it's Halloween time. We're gonna do this, and this, and you just understand that that's what's going to go on.
Now, I mean,
it makes total sense.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, one of the most popular things for Halloween is the pumpkin. The jack-o'-lantern.
Right.
And, there's a high percentage of people who still don't know that the term jack-o'-lantern is to do with, the pumpkins.
Right. So how did that come about? Of course, before we get into that too deep, you always see the pumpkin patches pop up, right? I'm guessing there's organizations that get these loads of pumpkins and they sell them and they make money. And of course, everybody wants to run out and buy a pumpkin. They set the pumpkin out there for a little bit, and then all of a sudden they start carving the pumpkin. Most people probably don't even know why they're doing it, kind of going back to the same fact of, this is what we always do. We carve a pumpkin, but there's got to be some kind of backstory to why we're doing this.
Yeah, there is, but I mean, before we go there, I have a couple of questions regarding pumpkins. Right?
Okay.
Now, we both know, and we've admitted before, very early on in some of the podcasts, that neither of us can draw or necessarily have much of an artistic talent in terms of that. You have some musical talent. But neither of us can draw or paint or any of that stuff.
We have none of that ability.
Are you good at carving pumpkins?
Zero. No, I'm not.
I can get a knife and kind of cut a rectangle. Not an exact rectangle, but something which, if you had to guess what shape it is, it'd be a rectangle.
Sure. Makes sense.
But it doesn't come out as a very scary pumpkin.
No. The last few years that we've actually carved pumpkins, I found out the easy way to carve pumpkins now is to get a drill.
Or you can get a stencil.
Well,
you put those kind of plastic stencils, and then you get the tools and you carve through that.
You can do that, but we actually use a drill with wood bits, and then we sit there and use the drill and try to do that, and it still turns out terrible.
Right.
It's ugly.
Now, do you eat any pumpkin products like pumpkin pie and stuff? Because I've tried pumpkin pie, and it's like Whoopi Goldberg taking a poop in my mouth. I can't stand it.
I will eat a slice or two of pumpkin pie on Thanksgiving, but that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't look forward to a slice of pumpkin pie. That's not my thing. I am not a pumpkin spice latte person. I don't get the pumpkin thing at all.
Well, it's that Starbucks thing of pumpkin spice latte and all this other stuff, which, the kind of traditional, white girls go at, it's pumpkin season. Let's get everything maybe, pumpkin spiced.
Maybe when it gets close to Thanksgiving, we'll do a pumpkin spice podcast because that's so popular. I've always said, I've seen the signs from oil change places. We're like, oh, pumpkin spice oil change, because it's such a joke now that everything becomes pumpkin spice. I don't get it. Not my thing.
Are we going to go ahead and do a Thanksgiving special? Because it's 2020 and I'm not sure I'm thankful for anything this year.
That might be a very short podcast.
Yeah,
let's be honest.
We'll do like a 4-minute thing.
4 minutes, that's kind of bold.
I'm thankful we still have the electricity on or something.
Pretty much. I think that's as far as we could go.
Yeah. Well, actually, going back to the jack-o'-lanterns, the pumpkins, it originated in Ireland, which didn't necessarily surprise me. But they use turnips instead of pumpkins. Now, I don't know if you know much about turnips. As a root vegetable, they're not very flavorful. Have you ever had a turnip? I mean,
I refuse to eat that. Yeah, you know my thing about
vegetables.
I'm not a fan.
Yeah,
not a fan.
Yeah, if your food doesn't hunt, then you don't want to eat it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Except for the potato, because you did say that you like potatoes with your steak.
But maybe potatoes are hunters, and we just haven't figured that out. Yeah. It could be like dolphins. Yeah. Dolphins are smart. Maybe potatoes are smart, and we just don't know that much about potatoes yet.
I just very much doubt that. But anyway, turnips. I kind of got them confused when I lived in England with swedes. So there's another root vegetable called a swede.
Never heard of it.
And they taste very, very similar. Maybe it's a European thing. But yeah, just very, very bland. But yeah, anyway, in Ireland, they use turnips instead of pumpkins. I don't even know if they had pumpkins in Ireland, but, they used turnips. And it was based on a legend about a man named Stingy Jack. Originally, Stingy. Originally, I thought it said like stingy, as in like, he's tight with his money and stuff. But no, Stingy Jack. I don't know how he got that nickname. But he repeatedly trapped the devil multiple times.
Oh, good for him.
I don't know if it was a weekend job or just like...
maybe he was just bored.
Boast, in the bar. Hey, I'm going to trap the devil. Ladies, come home with me. I don't know.
Yeah.
But, and he only let him go on the condition that Jack would never go to hell, which is a stupid bargain to begin with, because if you're going to trust anybody, the devil's probably not the most reliable person to keep a bargain or a bet with.
I got to agree with you.
If anybody's going to get out the contract, it's probably him.
Yeah. I mean, you got to admit the devil's probably got some pretty good lawyers.
Yeah. Well, absolutely, probably the best lawyers in the United States.
Well, aren't all lawyers in hell anyway? I mean, isn't there an old lawyer joke based off that?
So. Yeah, so anyway, when Jack died, he actually learned that heaven didn't want him either. I don't know if he got an email or like that through the mail or something. So nope.
Poor guy.
So he was condemned to like roam the earth as a ghost for all eternity. Now, when they say eternity, like you get people who say, "Oh my goodness, this is taking forever," and it's
so like
forever.
2020 is almost an eternity.
Yeah. So I mean, it might have been like 4 years. I don't know. You know how people exaggerate. So anyway, he was condemned to wander the earth as a ghost for all eternity, and the devil, I guess, just as a favor, gave Jack a lump of burning coal in a carved out turnip to light his way. So when they say that Jack roamed the earth, I guess it was just at night, not during the day, because I don't know why he needed a pimped out turnip to kind of light the way during the day. Well, but it's Ireland and the weather's crap.
And I know you being an Englishman, you probably have an adverse look at Irishmen. So this is probably a drunk story from an Irish pub. So so you got to turn around and say, well, this kind of makes sense. Typical Irish, right?
Yeah, right. So I mean, eventually the locals around that area where the sledging began, they began carving out faces into their own turnips. Now you have to remember. Ireland went through, I can't remember the century because, again, we're not that great. No, sorry, we're too lazy to research too much. They went through a huge potato famine and millions of them starved to death. But turnips are obviously edible. right? And I think pretty much the same.
That's arguable,
Well,
whether or not turnips are edible.
Well, they're bland, but I don't think they're usable because nobody asked for, like, you know, you get baked potatoes with cheese and all this stuff. Nobody asked for a baked turnip and cheese. But anyway, the point is,
are we on to something though? Maybe that's where turnips become edible. If you pour a bunch of sour cream and cheese and everything, maybe you can make it edible.
I don't think we should put all of our efforts at this time, when all these stores are closing down, into a turnip and cheese and sour cream
because
store.
I can't picture a turnip farmer coming in and saying, "Hey, can you please save my turnip farm?" Because they shouldn't have went into turnip farming.
I don't ever seen a turnip in the United States.
Oh, there's turnips.
Is there? Where?
Yeah.
In Texas?
Yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Where?
Yeah. Don't know where, but I can guarantee. I remember seeing turnips, thinking I'm not going to eat that, but they exist.
What, they like on a shelf or something? You were like, oh, that's a turnip.
It's kind of secret.
Yeah.
We
So
careful.
anyway, they use their own turnips. Now remember, the Irish weren't necessarily that agriculturally rich in terms of being self-sufficient at the time, because they were one famine away from millions of people dying, but
sure,
they still decided to carve out their own turnips to scare off evil spirits.
Oh, no. Did they feed the carved turnips Guinness?
Well, I don't know, because if I was an evil spirit, I would draw the line at eating a turnip anyway.
I would too. I mean, I totally get that. You know, the Irish, they have a lot going for them there, but you definitely don't want
a turnip. No,
you don't want to hang your hat on the turnips.
Well, going back to actually one of our previous podcasts where we were speaking about witches, which obviously is kind of a little bit linked into Halloween.
True.
With the witches and the gingers, and we talked about the stocks, you know, in medieval Europe, in England, etc., that, you know, they would throw rotten vegetables. And, you know, I think, you know, the turnip, you know, if you had a choice between throwing a potato and the turnip, I'd eat the potato, but throw the turnip.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
I would throw the turnip.
Because you're going to throw the stuff you don't want, aren't you?
You know, if I get to the point to where I'm about to starve to death, and the devil came to me...
I'm not throwing the potato.
And said, you're going to starve to death if you don't eat this turnip, I'd say, let me starve. I don't want to eat a turnip. No, I'm not doing that. No, not eating a turnip.
This is kind of a remake of the Garden of Eden with the apple, but now we've involved a turnip.
Yeah. Well, and I'm not a biblical scholar by any means, but even God didn't include the turnip in the Bible. Because I don't even think God likes the turnip. But
I put it alongside dinosaurs. Turnips, dinosaurs.
It would have been nice when the asteroid hit and killed the dinosaurs that it would have killed the turnips, but you can't have everything.
Well, going back to a couple of podcasts back, it didn't kill off the wasps. I mean, we've got a lot of complaining. We've got a lot of complaining to do about that asteroid. I think it only did 20% of the job it was supposed to do.
Yeah, it's just terrible. Why couldn't it have taken care of the job? But maybe it was in the contract that as long as you take care of these things, we're okay.
Yeah.
In the ducks, once again, are saying, we're still here. And we're not going to eat those turnips. We don't want that. But we digress.
Now, do you dress up much for Halloween?
I hate dressing up for Halloween.
It's hard to get you to wear pants to come in the office. I mean,
absolutely. I mean, I used to when I was a kid, but I struggle with putting on a costume. I know some people in Jason DeBoard, one of our sponsors with Alien Ale, he loves dressing up for Halloween.
Oh, he said he can sometimes spend up to $500 on a costume.
I mean, there are people that just love dressing up for Halloween. I don't like it. I can't bring myself to dress up, and I don't know if it's a fact of because Halloween's my birthday, and so I'm like, it's my birthday, this is supposed to be my day, and I don't like dressing up, so I don't want to dress up. But you know what, I always get forced into dressing up.
Right.
And so there are so many people that love dressing up, and there's all kinds of costumes that go on, but that's not my bag.
Right.
I don't like it.
Yeah, and the origin actually of wearing the costumes, is quite funny because, going back to the Celts, with the ghosts allegedly, kind of wandering around the earth, the Celts decided to get pretty creative to avoid being terrorized by the evil spirits. So to try and fake out the ghost, now, a lot of the time when people think of ghosts and spirits, they think, all right, they've got knowledge because they're watching you all the time and all this, and so they know pretty much everything anyway, because these are the kind of ghosts and spirits you get to, read your future and all this stuff. And so, hey, I know what I'm going to do to fool these kind of, not omnipotent, but omnipresent type spirits. I'm going to wear a costume, so they're going to mistake me for a spirit, and they're going to leave me alone. I mean, great plan. I mean, I don't think anything could go wrong with it, to be honest.
Yeah, it makes total sense. I mean, if you look at the Ghostbuster movies and you look at Slimer, he would probably be fooled by that. But beyond anything outside of that, I can't see it.
I don't think Slimer was a ghost. I think he was a genetic malfunction from Wuhan in China.
Probably so.
Yeah.
Of course, that was before all that mess, but it does make sense.
Yeah.
What do you call it? Apparition, a product of that, what they call it, ectoplasm.
Ectoplasm, Well, that's what's left over from the ghost's presence, I guess.
Right.
It's residual, whatever left over from the entity. Now, again, one of the great Halloween traditions is the black cat. Now,
the black cat.
The black cat.
Oh, here we go with cats.
Black cats matter, by the way.
Oh,
we just want to put that out there.
Well,
because it's Halloween and black cats matter. Because a lot of people are mean to black cats around Halloween.
A lot of people are mean to black cats just on the superstition, but that's just this subset of cats that, my feeling on cats.
Well, yeah, I mean, generally they're wankers. And,
yes.
that. Now, to say that, I mean, I have owned a lot of cats, and you and I had a mutual cat, which we kind of switched between us, Konami the cat, who was a lovely cat.
Rest in peace, Konami.
She was a lovely cat.
She was
loving. She was sweet. I mean, she didn't like other animals, but, I mean, she was a lovely cat. But, black cats, they've always had a bad reputation. I mean, going back to the Middle Ages, they were considered a symbol of the devil. And so people would pretty much kill them on sight. If you had a cat and they, for whatever reason, they were born and they were black, they would instantly stick those in a bag and drown them in the nearest river.
Terrible.
It didn't help the reputation when a little bit later on, especially, when you get towards, the formation of, America, that, witches were rumored to have black cats as companions or familiars. And so black cats were always associated with witches. And, a lot of the Halloween symbols are like witches riding with a black cat on the broomstick.
Yeah.
How do they keep the balance, though? I can understand how the witches keep their balance. How do the cats keep their balance?
Well, you got to remember, the only way to have a perpetual motion device is to tape a piece of bread with butter on the back of a cat, because cats always land on their feet, and buttered bread always lands on the buttered side. So if you can tape that together, you could have that spinning around constantly and create some kind of electrical current.
You think that's how the cat's kept on the broomsticks?
Yes.
Do you think...
Doesn't that make sense?
Well, no, but do you think... do you think some witches, if they couldn't find a black cat, given they were flying in the air and it was night and mainly only backlit by the moon, that they probably just cut out a silhouette of a black cat and maybe just stuck it on with sellotape or something to the broomstick?
What if they dyed the fur
on the
of
broomstick
cat?
and just fell off?
No. They dyed the fur of the cat.
Oh, made it black. Yeah.
Yeah, because maybe you got a poor witch, right? And that witch can't find a black cat, and so there's an orange tabby cat walking around, and she looks and says, "Oh, you know what? I could probably dye your fur black, Yeah, because I'm kind of poor and I'm not doing well in my witching thing, so I need a black cat, and I can't find a black cat, so now this is how I get my black cat.
But you have to remember the cat doesn't know what color it is or what color it's been dyed. So how do you convince it to get on the broomstick? Now it's easy with black cats because they're obviously servants of the devil.
Sure.
But how do you get like a white tortoiseshell cat or whatever to actually get on the broomstick?
I think you
Lure them with
it.
salmon.
Yeah, you trick it. It's very easy to trick it. You just sprinkle a little bit of cat litter, right there on the back of the broom, and then you tease it with tuna fish.
Yeah, that's probably correct.
Yeah.
Now, talking about witches, we actually covered witches so thoroughly in an earlier podcast.
We did.
That I believe, although this has a close to 0% accuracy, that CNN said that our podcast on witches was the most accurate and truthful portrayal of witches that's ever been written.
I believe that. It makes total sense to me.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
we thoroughly fact check everything. So,
We did, yeah.
So why wouldn't anybody believe what we have to say?
Well, apparently on Halloween, the original basis of, witches and them taking advantage of this thin veil between the living and the dead, that people believed that witches flew out of their chimneys.
Chimneys?
The chimneys. Now, have you ever seen a fat witch? Because I don't know how she's going to get out of the chimney, I'll be honest with you. Especially the old kind of like medieval chimneys, because they were like about 9 inches square.
Yeah, the traditional witches, no.
Yeah.
The modern witches, yes. And I think that's where Hollywood has kind of came in and tried to change our view of witches.
Yeah.
But the old witches, yeah, they were always thin.
Do you think, in terms of real estate management, when a witch is buying a house, she kind of went to something like Keller Realtor around here where we live and said, look, I want a house with a chimney which is at least like 42 square inches because I can't fly out of this thing otherwise?
Well, that would make sense. I mean, that would be smart.
Yeah, I want a house with a chimney. When she goes on that search, that realtor search, must have a chimney. I don't care if it's 2 floors, front yard, backyard, got to have a chimney. Because Halloween, yes. I am screwed if I do not have a chimney.
Yeah, and they would probably prefer a house without an HOA so they could be in the backyard and go ahead and have their cauldron and stir that up and have a nice fire going. And they want their cats running around. I mean, it makes total sense.
Well, I mean, they flew out the chimneys on the broomsticks. And again, we already covered that and the witches and the gingers about the broomsticks. And apparently they terrorized the countryside with their magical deeds. And not like card tricks and stuff like Find the Queen and all this stuff.
Yeah.
You'd figure
stuff we would consider fun.
Because you'd figured among the peasants they'd actually be quite happy that somebody showed a magic trick. Because, I've watched the David Blaine street magic shows and all that. And it doesn't matter where he goes, whether he goes to poor areas in Brazil or anywhere. People are very happy to see the magic. So I would have figured the countryside people, if the witches were showing them magical deeds, they'd be quite happy unless they kind of turned them into a frog or something.
Mm-hmm. Makes total sense.
Yeah. Now, on a personal note, do you believe in ghosts? I know we asked Jason this, and he said he didn't want to be haunted.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's safe to not be quite sure about things. Do I believe in ghosts? I can honestly give you the I don't know answer because I'm not saying they don't exist, but I will not say they do exist. I think there's a possibility there, and I've always been that person to say if it's possible, I'm not going to just discountenance the possibility.
And it's weird, actually.
I think it makes sense. I think there is a supernatural world.
Yeah.
But it honestly probably depends on the definition of a ghost. Because ghost could be a spirit. Ghost could be something that has a malintent. a ghost could be something that just wandering around because they're lost. They're trapped in between this life and the afterlife. I don't know. I truly don't know. And because I don't know, I'm not going to say I do or do not believe in a ghost.
Yeah. Now, so do you... I know you don't like horror movies. We've discussed this before.
I don't. Now, okay, so let's clear this up in case anybody's wondering. I do not like the traditional horror movie.
Right.
But one of my favorite movies of all time is The Exorcist.
Yeah.
And that is considered a horror movie.
I thought that was a documentary.
Exactly. And that's how I look at that movie. I do not get scared from that movie, but a lot of people say that's one of the scariest horror movies of all time. I don't actually park that in the horror movie category.
Yeah.
I look at that movie as very interesting.
Yeah.
So there's certain movies that I probably like that some people say are horror movies that I don't consider horror movies. What I don't like is a movie that is based off of jump cuts and goofy
scare
things.
Tactics and all that type of stuff.
Yeah, that's not my thing.
Yeah.
I don't care for that. I want to be able to, either sit in the theater, sit on the couch, watch something, and be entertained. And if you're just going to flash the screen at me and make me jump and do all that, that's not entertaining.
When you talk about flash the screen, The Exorcist was one of the first movies, actually while it was still legally allowed to do so, used flash frames in the movie.
They did.
Yeah.
That is true.
Yeah.
And the thing with that movie is that, yes, they did use that, but it didn't scare me.
No, but it adds this subliminal effect to make people uneasy, because there was some very kind of placid scenes during the movie. I think it was when the priest, was having memories about his mother, like walking up a staircase, like in New York or something, and it had these flash frames of these kind of demonic faces, and what should have been a kind of comforting scene of him having a good memory about his mother suddenly became very uncomfortable because this 1/10 of a second flash frame.
Right. And even getting away from horror movies, I don't know who had to lay down this rule, but you could put in clips in a regular movie of popcorn or...
Well, they stopped it in advertising.
Yeah.
In the 70s, early 70s.
Right. It was popcorn or a Coke or whatever, and you would see this subliminal message of, oh, I want some popcorn. Oh, I want Coke. And nobody could figure out why they wanted it. And it was just this quick flash of a big barrel of buttered popcorn.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you craved that and you went out there and you bought it. I remember hearing stories about going into the movie theater and they would pump the smell of buttered popcorn into the
through the air
theater.
filters.
Just to get you to buy popcorn and all that. And they finally had to get rid of it. So that subliminal thing, that doesn't bother me. It was more of the... You're watching a movie and then all of a sudden they jump cut something and there's somebody there, there's the antagonist of the movie and they're, scaring you and doing all that. That's what I don't care for.
Yeah.
Just never been my thing.
Now, did you know with The Exorcist, when they started, there were a lot of reports at the time, newspaper articles, sensationalism about people leaving the movie theaters, throwing up, scared, because it did set a very different form of horror movie, because it was pretty disturbing. I remember when I watched it, it was pretty disturbing. But one of the earliest scenes in the movie, and when they actually did, not necessarily a questionnaire, but when they interviewed people about what they thought about the movie, for people who had no kids, that scene where she walks down the stairs and kind of pisses herself and says to the guy, "You're going to die up there."
Yeah, the
or whatever.
Little crab walk thing.
Yeah. But when they asked parents, people who had kids, whether
Right.
they were disturbed by the scene of the kid walking down the stairs and pissing themselves. It's like, no, that's just normal. Yeah, they were like, no, that didn't disturb me at all.
Yeah,
That's Tuesday.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I totally get that. And I guess that's why even when I watch The Exorcist, my daughter loves horror movies, but she doesn't like The Exorcist. She says, "Oh, it's not scary," and I say, "Well, it's not scary because you like those jump cuts,
Right,
You,
yeah.
you like that feeling of." All of a sudden, something happens.
Females tend to like the scream movies, so they're going to watch. They want an emotional reaction, which is instant,
Right.
not a build-up necessary one, because it's been proven that women don't necessarily like suspenseful movies because it makes them feel kind of not depressed, but it makes them feel so uncomfortable that they don't enjoy that period. Because they're waiting for something to happen, but it never happens.
Right.
So they like the ones where perhaps the scare is a little more predictable, so you can see it coming, and then it happens, it gets a reaction, and then you just repeat the thing. It's like being on a roller coaster. They kind of enjoy more of that type of thing, whereas men, it's harder to make men jump with horror movies. With men, it's easier to disturb them by putting them in an uncomfortable place or in a situation whereby, if you personalize it and put yourself in that situation, you really don't know what you'd do. And that's been proven. That's how you make men uncomfortable in movies. You put them in a situation where, crap, I don't know what I'd do now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really...
Well, and on the flip side of that, I mean, my wife, she will claim that there are certain movies that I like that she considers scary. I won't say they're horror movies,
Right.
but she considers that they're scary.
Yeah.
And for example, the movie Signs by M. Night
Yeah.
Shyamalan.
Mhm. Yeah.
I don't think that movie is scary
Right.
at all. I think it's a great movie.
Yeah.
I think the script is great. I think the filming is great. I think it's a good movie all the way through. She considers that a horror movie.
Right.
It scares her.
Yeah.
Just to think about aliens coming down and that kind of end scene. And anybody listening to this has probably already seen the movie, so we're not spoiler doing any of this because that's an old movie, right? But she considers that a horror movie. She will not watch it at night. She will not watch it when the lights are out. All the lights have to be on. It has to be daytime. The blinds have to be open. It scares her.
Yeah.
But I think you go back to something like The Exorcist, and the reason why she's scared of Signs is the same reason why The Exorcist is one of the greatest horror movies of all time, because it could happen.
Right.
It could happen. And you could argue, I know one of the popular ones right now is that Annabelle. I don't know the name of the movies
that's
or whatever.
That's good. Well, I mean, that's actually based on, a
No,
true story.
no, it is a true story.
I actually know those two investigators, and where that story originated from. I mean, it's actually based on a true story. And it is an unsettling movie. But whenever you have something, especially if you bother looking it up, and you see that it is not just based on a true story, as in like we used the first person's name and, the actual state where it happened, and then they just let their imagination run wild.
Sure.
But it is actually a movie which is based very closely on a true story. And those ones, I mean, like you take the Amityville ones, which are based on a true story, they are very unsettling because they're pretty true in terms of it's a reproduction from reports of what happened. But having said that, you talk about Amityville, haunted house as such. Do you like haunted houses? Do you go to haunted houses with your kids?
Nope. I hate haunted houses. Part of the reason why I hate haunted houses is the same reason why I hate horror movies, because most haunted houses are all about, what do you call them? What's the name of the flashing lights? Like a strobe light.
Yeah.
You have a strobe light and you have people jumping out, and you're trying to walk down a hall, and then next thing you know, somebody jumps out and goes boo.
Yeah. Well, 90% of the reason for haunted houses is for guys to take girls to a haunted house so that at the end of the night they'll kiss them on the cheek for protecting them. I mean,
Right.
that's why you take. That's why a guy will take a girl to a haunted house.
Sure. I remember when I was, oh gosh, this was so many years ago. There was a haunted house that my dad participated in, and he was the mad scientist.
All right.
And his friend was a kind of a, not quite the chainsaw massacre guy, but he had a chainsaw. And I remember my dad in that haunted house, and this, by the way, was a middle school. This is for like 5th and 6th graders. And my dad just had this white coat that had fake blood poured all over it. And when you walked through, he was holding an egg in his hand that was painted like an eyeball.
All right.
And would just look at the people walking through and said, "Oh, I pulled this eye out of somebody," and everybody was scared. Those haunted houses, I'm good with. But just walking through, hallways that are taped with black plastic and you can't see anything, and next thing you know, somebody jumps out at you and goes, "Boo."
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, you could do that in your daily life. If you're walking around in the dark and somebody jumps from behind a bush and says, "Boo," that doesn't do anything for me.
Well, there's a difference between being startled and being scared, because being startled, I mean, a little kitten can jump out and make you jump, right? But in terms of being scared, there has to be some cognitive thing, and being in the moment of, am I actually scared? I'm seeing something, I'm doing something, and you actually have some cognitive ability to kind of be, am I scared? Like I said, a kitten can make you jump, but to actually be scared more than for 2 or 3 seconds, that's a completely different experience.
I think you're onto something there, because a lot of the horror movies, a lot of the haunted houses is more about startled and not scared.
Yeah.
Because I could watch a horror movie tonight and pick one of the modern horror movies. I'm going to be startled all night long.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump and I'm going to do all that. But you know what? I'm going to go into my bedroom. I'm going to go to sleep. I'm going to be fine.
Yeah.
I'm not going to have nightmares. I'm not going to be scared.
Right.
Now we've went to this startled.
Yeah.
Let's just get somebody to go, "Ah, ah, ah,"
Yeah.
and have the scream and do that. Let's go through a haunted house and say, "Oh, somebody jumped out. Ah!" I'm startled. And I love that point, because it should be a startled house.
Yeah.
It should be a startled movie. It shouldn't be scared. It shouldn't be haunted.
Yeah.
It's such a safety thing that it's so easy to, what we should call startled, but now we call scared.
Yeah.
To scare somebody, but we're really startle them. I could come up behind you and just kind of poke you in the back if you're not expecting it. I'm going to startle you.
Well, actually,
but I didn't scare you.
Well,
you're
actually,
not going to lose sleep at night if I do that.
Right. Well, I actually don't have any startle reflex, and this is one of the things which anybody who knows me will tell you. I don't jump at stuff. Okay, I can go through any horror movie. I can go through a haunted house. Something can jump out, and I don't have this startle reflex. I just don't jump at anything. I can go through it. I don't jump at anything in a movie. I just don't have that type of thing. And I don't know what it is in my brain. Like there's people who can't throw up. I can't startle. People can't startle. Now, when you talk about being scared, to me, I have to really have some type of existentialism and review the kind of point. Am I scared of not being able to provide for my son, or scared of this, that, or the other? Yeah, that might be true, but do I get scared in terms of supernatural things? Absolutely not. I'm never scared of supernatural things. I do believe in ghosts, absolutely. You go back to biblical times. Even, when Jesus was walking on the water, the disciples in the boat, they were scared because, and it says, because they thought it was a ghost. Where did that come from? there must have been belief in ghosts even before the revelation of, Jesus being the Son of God and everything else, that they believed there were ghosts.
Yeah, and that makes total sense. And it kind of goes back to my thing that I'm kind of along the same lines of you, but you've been in the movie theater with me. When I'm trying to be entertained, I want to be entertained. And if I'm watching a quote-unquote horror movie, if I'm sitting there and most of the time I fall asleep in the movie theater and I get woke up, then I get upset.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe that goes back to why I don't care for them, because I don't get relaxed. I mean, I'm paying money for this. I want to be entertained, and I understand why some people are entertained different ways. I mean, we have a theme park around here in North Texas, Six Flags Over Texas, and they have Fright Fest. And I remember going to Fright Fest, taking my wife there before we were married, taking my kids there. My daughter went there, and now they've even changed the name because they don't try to scare you anymore.
Right.
And once again, they don't try to scare you anymore. But even back in those days, it was just trying to jump out and make you be startled.
Yeah.
And I truly think that that's such a great term, because it's all about startling you, not scaring you.
Now, there are actually some extreme haunted houses now. I've only read about them in the last 3-4 months. Certain parts of the country where, they will really go all out to make it a terrifying experience. Now, not in terms of the type of ghostly stuff and making you jump, but more of the kind of Saw type of experience. Like, they'll come up, you have to sign a disclaimer before you go in. They'll come out, punch you in the face, kick you in the balls, that type of thing.
But there's one, and I don't know if we researched this or not, but I remember reading an article about one that you have to sign up for. You have to have a psychological exam. And if you can get through it, you win some money and all that.
Yeah.
It's like, if I know that it's all fake, I'd probably do it. But you know what? I just don't really care to do it.
I just don't know if it's any worse than where I grew up, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, it's no worse than trying to watch episode 8 of Star Wars. I mean, that was honestly one of the most worst horror movies I've ever seen. That one scared me more than anything.
Now, obviously here in the United States, we love to commercialize everything, and Halloween is no exception. I mean, every holiday, it has the Hallmark effect on it. If we can commercialize something, like even
if we can figure out a way to make money on something, we're gonna do it.
Like, you get to the point, you walk down the card aisle and it's, commiserations on your parrot's death or something like that. Pay $9.69 for the card and you get a free, like when you open it up, there's a pop-out parrot.
Makes sense.
To remind you of your dead parrot. But amazingly, in the United States, 1/4 of all the candy sold throughout the entire year is actually purchased for Halloween, and it comes to just under $3 billion.
That makes total sense. If you think about, if you go to a store, even right now in this COVID era that we're in right now, there's still all these bags of candy, and I look at the price of the candy and I'm like, who would buy this much candy and for this price just for Halloween?
Yeah.
It's so ridiculous.
Yeah. Wait till November 2nd.
Yeah, exactly. And it kind of goes back to what I was talking about with my boy that is, born one day after Valentine's Day. I mean, we didn't do the research on that because this is more on Halloween, but I'm sure Valentine's Day is kind of one step down below that with candy, because that's a big deal. It's ridiculous. And of course, you have Halloween branded candy and you have Valentine's Day candy. It's the same candy. They just changed the wrapper.
Yeah.
And then they all of a sudden try to sell it to you for more. And next thing you know, they're trying to almost give it away. They get 50, 75% off. My wife is so great with this because after Valentine's Day, after Halloween, she always goes and buys all the cheap candy.
Yeah.
Because it's cheaper than the regular candy.
It's the same thing with Christmas decorations. I mean, you go there and it's 70% off. Yeah, just stick it in a box for next year.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't actually wait for our Valentine's Day podcast because it's going to be a mixture of bitterness and complete uninformative facts.
Well, isn't that all of our podcasts?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, did you know now, well, actually, as of last year, I don't know about this year, that 20% of people in the United States actually buy costumes now for their pets.
For their pets.
For their pets.
So, have you ever went on some of these websites, or even if you've been in a pet store and you've looked at the picture of the costumes that you buy for your pets, how miserable they look.
Oh, yeah.
Wearing these clothes.
Yeah.
And by the way, not to get off topic, but it's not just the Halloween costumes, but just putting animals
Christmas
in clothes.
Hats, Santa.
It's just ridiculous. I mean, we've now brought the animals inside. We've said, oh, they can't live outside. That's bad. Now we got to put them in clothes.
Right.
I feel bad for the animals.
Well, you see, my dog is a Vizsla, so it already looks like a dumbass. So dressing it up as a goblin is not doing it any favors.
Yeah, and they don't know. They're like, okay, well, I still have to eat tonight.
Right.
So if my owner, my pet parent, whatever you want to call it, if they've got to do this to me just to make sure that I have my bowl of water, my bowl of food, my whatever, I guess I'll put up with this. But you can see the disappointment in their face that I have to go through this.
Yeah.
And especially the cats. And of course, everybody
cats
knows
are going to get revenge.
Everybody knows my feelings on cats. But I mean, seriously, look on the internet of the cat costumes. Yeah. There is not a happy cat out there.
There's not any happy cats. Yeah, you have to kind of put them on Xanax or something to even get the costume on, most of them. Because it's like trying to give them a bath. I mean, you're going to get scratched to death during some part of the process.
Absolutely.
Now, if you had to guess, how much would you think, on average, U.S. households spend on Halloween each year?
Oh, man. So are we talking about per household?
Well, I'll give you a clue.
Or just grand total?
Yeah, yes. I'll give you a clue. It's more than $1 and it's less than the cost of the Green New Deal.
Oh, okay. Well, that helps.
Yeah. So it's between 1 and infinity.
Yep. So I'm going to guess on a given year, right? On a given year, what we spend on Halloween.
Well, not a given year. Like, I don't know, maybe the last 5-10 years. I'm not talking about like 1426.
I'm
where they probably spent $14 on it.
Yep, and of course, for our listeners, how great I am at guessing on these. So I'm gonna go with $1 billion. All
right, Austin Powers. Sorry, Dr. Evil. 1 million. No,
1
million. Yeah. Because remember, he updates it later on to 1 billion, doesn't he? I think in the second movie. He goes,
I don't know. Well, what do we spend?
In a normal year, it's close. Well, over the last 5 years, it's been close to 9 billion, right?
$9 billion.
Yeah. Remember, 2.7 billion of that is on candy.
Okay. So a third of it, roughly.
Yeah. Yeah. So
where's the other 2/3?
Well, I mean,
costumes, decorations, all that.
Yeah. Alcohol.
Yeah,
to kind of put up with
birthday presents for me.
Yeah, birthday gifts to you. So that's taking out $12 of the 8 or 9 billion.
$12.
Now
I'm getting ripped off because last year it was less than $12.
So, but actually in the United States, it's like 64% of the population actually celebrate Halloween. Now, I don't know what that means by celebrate Halloween or acknowledge it, but there's actually an average of $86 spent per person. But I don't know any year where I've spent, outside of going to haunted houses, I guess, I don't know
but
86.
see, that
But then we have
counts.
our friend Jason who spends $500 on the costume. That probably evens it out.
Yeah, so he equals you out.
Yeah,
but,
yeah, he equals out for 5 years.
But you also did just qualify that. You said outside of haunted houses, haunted houses, so that counts.
Yeah.
So that all goes back to spending money on Halloween.
Yeah.
So, is Halloween our favorite holiday?
It's one of my favorite holidays because I feel you get to celebrate it how you want rather than somebody dictating how you should spend it. I think with, a lot of holidays, like with Christmas, I mean, it's so in your face. And, Easter, it has a very specific message. I like Halloween because you can either partake in it or not, but still enjoy the holiday.
The one good thing that and this could be a rabbit hole, so let's be careful here, but the one thing I can say about Halloween is nothing has really changed with Halloween over the years.
Right.
But Christmas has changed.
Yeah.
Valentine's Day changed. If you look at Christmas,
Are we still allowed to say Christmas?
Oh, I think so.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure we still set
All
our
right.
own rules. But
Okay.
if you look at Christmas and now you have Elf on the Shelf,
Yeah.
which, spoiler alert, we're going to talk about that. That never was a thing when we were growing up, and
Right.
now you have Elf on the Shelf, and all these things kind of come in and try to ruin holidays. We haven't really ruined Halloween.
I'm looking forward to covering Elf on the Shelf because it has some very insidious origins.
Yeah, it does, but we haven't ruined Halloween yet.
Not yet.
There hasn't been a black cat.
We'll
on
find
the
a way.
hat.
We'll find a way.
But there's somebody
Yeah.
out there that's going to write some horrible book and have some deal, and we're eventually going to try to ruin
Yeah.
Halloween. But I think there is enough people out there that says, no, leave Halloween
Yeah.
alone. Leave Halloween
Yeah.
alone. Let this be one of those holidays that honestly, it's not really truly a holiday. Nobody gets off work for Halloween. You go to work and maybe your place of employment lets you dress up a little bit. Maybe they let you, dress a little funny. If you have to wear a uniform, now you don't, and you can put a T-shirt on with the superhero, whatever. We still have that.
Yeah.
Maybe this is one of the few holidays that we haven't ruined.
Yeah.
And we got to be careful that we don't ruin this holiday.
Well,
especially for my birthday.
Well, I think one of the great costume things of the last few years was the Game of Thrones inspired one of somebody just turning up with no costume whatsoever, but wearing a T-shirt saying "A man has no costume," which if you're a Game of Thrones fan, that makes a lot of sense. But my friend went to a party and there were like, I don't know, maybe like about 80, 90 people there. And he said like about 15 people had that same T-shirt on.
Wow. In closing, everybody always says, what are you dressing up for as Halloween? And I've always said, a man 1 year older.
Yeah.
And I can always get away
Yeah.
with that because my birthday's on Halloween.
I'm dressing up as the ghost of wasted hopes and dreams.
Yeah. So thank you for tuning into this episode of The Wolf and the Shepherd. We certainly appreciate all of your support. We truly do. And we'll catch you on the next one.